Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gary's Glorious Golden Nuggets. This is episode 0044. Today, we are very pleased to have Raj Goodman Anand, who is the founder of Goodman Lantern, a team of native English content writing so that people in business can better sell and grow faster. He is basically proving the point of Winston Churchill's famous speech in the Americas when he said that between the United States and the United Kingdom, a common language known as English was dividing the two. He has created several startups. He has several businesses that he has under his control. And his companies have an income in excess of 45 million per year. Now, he's been also on Newsweek's Europe's Young Entrepreneurs list. He's one of the top 50 most influential people in the digital world. He has spoken at such places as London School of Economics. So if you are in Europe or if you're in the more elite of the North Americans, you realize that he is not a slouch. This is a man who knows what he's speaking about, and he has great value to share with us. So number one, Raj, welcome to the show.
Gary, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I got to tell you, having such quality people like you is such a privilege to have on the air. So let's just begin with my favorite starting question for everybody. You're a digital entrepreneur, and what do you wish you had known before you entered into the digital sphere?
Well, I think digital is a very interesting opportunity. It is the liquid, is the oil of our century, it's the oil of our times. It is what is going to make or break, businesses, economies, for example. The transformation to digital is really, really interesting for anybody today. But I think before I got into entrepreneurship, I kind of didn't realize the power of digital, but also the power of delegation and the power of really being able to leverage the connectivity we have globally. I think that is something which if I had known from day one, today, a billion would be much easier to achieve than what it is at the moment, only because leveraging online space and the people who are connected, for example, is what will make or break a company, an economy, and beyond.
Ladies and gentlemen, we call this Gary's Glorious Golden Nuggets because our guest leaves success clues everywhere, and that was a wheelbarrow full of clues for you. I will tell you, I'm going to love this interview. This is going to go really well. Now, with all of that said, along the way, there were things that probably didn't go the way you wanted them to go. And perhaps what was one of the biggest things that didn't go well? And what did you learn from it? What were the golden nuggets, the seeds of success that you gained from that?
Well, for me, Gary, it is success or learning. I don't think the F word is part of my dictionary, because obviously we are always learning. I think my biggest failure actually is to do with learning. After university, I started my first business, and that was basically a Facebook clone. It was a software to power social media for businesses, mainly travel and government-based organizations. But I thought that after university, education is over. That's the end of learning, and I can now just go and implement stuff. And actually, that's wrong. I learned after that, learning is something we constantly keep doing. And we can't draw a line underneath learning and say, you know what, this is it. I'm done. I've got what I need to learn and I am good to go. Actually, we're constantly trying and failing. Now I use the F word myself, to be honest. We keep trying and learning and actually maybe not getting to the same level as you want it to get. And the only way to overcome that is to be hungry, stay foolish, and always try to better yourself by learning from peers, from books, which is super powerful. And today, the power of internet, leverage, for example, things like YouTube, Udemy, all these different podcasts like you have, Gary. These are the sources of power for every entrepreneur, every professional who is working to better their lives or the company.
I thank you for that. One of the things that I think you're really kind of bringing out is what Eric Hofer in his philosophy pointed out. He said, blessed is the learner, for the learner shall inherit the earth, because the learned will be perfectly prepared for the world that no longer exists. And that is where the strength is. It's the people who sit back and learn. So let me ask you really quickly, when you personally are going out learning things, and you've named a lot of resources, what to you are the most important resources to learn from?
I could name them, for example, and say, that is probably the best resource online or offline, for example. But I think the biggest challenge we have today is not that there isn't enough to learn. The challenge is to prioritize things. That is what the real challenge is. You're like, how do you know if I should read the book from Tim Ferriss before James Clear, for example? Should I be learning about build to sell, for example, or automation in business, for instance? And I think that is the main challenge. And I think the only way to overcome this is to surround yourself with peers who are maybe a notch above yourself and ask them, leverage their knowledge, leverage their experience. The way people are doing this today is by joining either local or online forums, for example, or entrepreneurship groups. And people often say, oh, you know what, that's a waste of money. I don't see I can sell any of these guys because they don't have the same business as myself or the same target market. But actually, we forget about learning from them. They could be an awesome resource to learn from and actually leverage their knowledge and their learnings from the books they have read, for example, and prioritizing those. I'm part of quite a few in-person and online entrepreneurship groups. Some of them are not cheap at all. They're super expensive, for example, to join. But the value creation was clear to me after maybe a couple of months of joining them. So I think if we surround ourselves with millionaires, we will become billionaires. If we surround ourselves with billionaires, we'll become billionaires. I mean, that's as simple as.
I think that's very important because you are always going to be about as successful as the five most associated people with you. And you've got to have that concept of the mastermind. I mean, we're going way back in time to Napoleon Hill here, where he's talking about the most successful people that he could find back in the 1920s were people who had mastermind groups, and that he created his own mastermind group. And part of it was actually all in his imagination, because there were a lot of dead people and people who he would never ever have the right to contact. And I think you're right. It's all about collaboration. This is the modern way to success, is you got to collaborate and find people who know just the edge more than you know that can drag you up there. With all of that information and with Goodman Lantern, it's genius what you came up with about, native speakers, content. Tell us more about that.
Well, let me give you a bit of pretext to it. So before I started Goodman Lantern, I used to work for a company in Europe, and I helped them grow from 7.5 million to 45 million in revenue. And that was in the back of good content, storytelling, and SEO. I think a lot of us forget about the power of the brand we build through storytelling. People relate to people, they relate to stories, they're not fascinated by the fastest car. They want to hear about the entrepreneur behind it. I mean, that's why you'll notice that Elon Musk gets more likes, for example, on LinkedIn than SpaceX or even Tesla, for example, because people link with other people. So storytelling is really important, but equally the challenge is that companies, when they want to do this at scale, tell stories at scale, so write content at scale, it is time consuming and challenging. And that's where we come in. We focus our attention on helping our customers to write native English content for their blogs, social media, white papers, and beyond at scale, so that we become part of their team and we help them to sell better and grow faster. At the same time, we make sure we have their tone, their core values, their vision, their mission. So we are basically effectively part of their team, but working obviously remotely. And that's a big part of, I believe in, like remote culture, remote working. And before the pandemic began, and before that as well, remote working, I believe, is the X factor for a company today to really accelerate the growth in the business environment, because they can save on costs, they can save on bring the best talent they can, not only locally but globally. And more importantly, it is flexible. That means people are going to be happier, they'll be focused more on their lives and between their work and life, and overall building a better proposition for all of us.
If success leaves clues, they're all over the place in that answer, ladies and gentlemen. How you can benefit from the power of collaboration and the internet. With this, I just really want to know about the genius that you came up with, because the native speaker concept, I mean, there are native speakers, but they're Australian. There are native speakers in English, but they're Canadian. There are native speakers, but they're British. And having lived in all of these different locations, myself personally, English is used differently. And so how did you come up with the concept, this is what we need to do for content writing based upon national cultural origin?
Okay, so thanks for saying that, Gary. First of all, I believe that as we expand globally, we still buy locally quite often. We still interact with local communities quite a bit. We relate to communities around us because they are in the same environment as we are. And we can't change that, and we shouldn't change that. We should respect that those differences we have. So in order to leverage our opportunities, we need to make sure that we communicate with people in the language which they understand, which they like to hear. And that's a key part, a key differentiation between people who win in marketing and ones who don't. A lot of people often, think about marketing as a bit of a gimmicky thing. Actually, the reality is marketing is all about and to relate to people and to make them relate to your product or service, really. And so it's important that when we speak to people, we speak to them in their language, in their tone, in their accent, whatever it is that we're going to do. And then when that comes to play, writing is an important part. I mean, we talked about Napoleon, for example. Napoleon was a genius because he should write press releases about his war victories to get people on his side in France. So he should write like press releases for the gazettes in France, for example. So, writing is super important, has been in history and will be for many, many centuries to come, for example. The forms are different today. Maybe, social media has taken over some of the writing, for example. But to write in a way that people can comprehend and relate to is super important. And that's why native English writing is super important, because you write English in the native tone of the country you're writing for. The ROI on that is going to be much higher. I mean, one thing study we did was about 2 to 3 times more better ROI than if you just use plain British English across the globe, for example, or if you use maybe, for example, Malaysian English in Canada, for example. It will make a big impact. So we recommend and we suggest to keep it native and make sure we change tonality to fit the country we're targeting.
That's really brilliant. And I see the internet as a global unifying force. The more that people come together, the more that market shares can be reached out across geographic barriers. In fact, there's no boundaries really within the world of the internet. Where do you see business heading in, let's say, the next 10 to 30 years?
If you just follow Moore's law, we understand that technology is becoming cheaper and faster. It's, according to Moore's law, is getting twice as faster every 2 years and half the price. I think what today we often think about sort of innovation, we talk about sort of these like amazing things which people have done. And maybe the last big innovation before the current one was when there was discovery of petrol and oil. A lot of the billionaires, the Rockefellers, for example, made their billions from leveraging oil and other resources which were extracted from the ground, for example. Today, we are sitting on a absolute gold mine, which is the internet. We discovered it maybe 29 years back or so. And if we know how to leverage that resource, there is nothing stopping us to be successful. And it could be used literally in every field we can think of. People often come back and say, oh, you know what, it can't be used for manufacturing. My friend, manufacturing uses IoT, Internet of Things, which is a big opportunity. Just think about 3D manufacturing, which can be done at home, 3D printing, for example, remote controlling factories from sitting in the US can control factories, for example, in Indonesia. It's all today possible thanks to the internet. The world is our oyster when it comes to using internet for different fields. And if we know how to leverage that resource and to maximize it, there's nothing stopping us from becoming billionaires, trillionaires, whatever it is that we're looking to become. Or maybe not, maybe just having a happy life, which is also a great thing.
Having a happy life, I think, is really the goal. You can get a lot of things along the way, and maybe having those makes you feel safer or happier or more joyful in some regards. But really, I'm finding that this power of the internet is only hampered by your thinking. It is the power of the mind is truly being unleashed, perhaps for the first time in human history, by the masses. Before, it was just a few people did the thinking. Now it's pretty much everybody who wants to can come in, and they have to think. And so this is an atmosphere where winning becomes the ordinary versus extraordinary. And that's one of the things that I'm really glad to have you here, because I mean, as a man who started startups and you've taken them places, a person who's gone into other people's businesses and taken them someplace, what if you could say, here are 3 key factors? If you got these 3 things, you're winning. What are they?
I would say the first one is having the right team. I think teams with the right mindset, the same value system as yourself, is certainly the differentiating factor between company A and company B. That's number one. Number 2 is a combination of automation and delegation. I believe that today, we can't clone ourselves, not yet. Maybe in the next 100 years or so we can. For the time we can't clone ourselves, but we can minimize our effort and maximize our output by actually delegating, by making sure the team members we bring in are the right people and then delegating that to them. Equally, where possible, to automate. I know today, for example, podcasting can be done at scale because you can delegate things to VAs, for example. You can transcribe them using transcription AI tools, for example. So you're really leveraging AI for automation and teams for helping you make your life easier and faster and cheaper and more effective and happier. So I think these things are really important. The last thing I feel, which we need to kind of keep in mind, as I said before as well, is constantly learning. It's like you can never stop learning. You can never say this is it. I know everything that I need to learn today. I can now survive on the learnings and the laurels of my learnings from my university or from my course that I did online. I think we have to remain hungry and foolish and constantly want to learn more. And that's how we will make ourselves the best version of ourselves every day, every month, every year.
I got to tell you, Raj, you're really an interesting guy. You're really bright. And I appreciate your vision about how things get done and how they should be done. What's the best way for people to contact you?
Thank you, Gary. So I'm on LinkedIn. Just look for Raj Goodman Anand, and you'll find me. Add me, drop me. Just say hey. I mean, I'd love to hear from people.
Awesome. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this guy is as approachable as he appears right now. He's happy to communicate with you. And if he's resonating with you, there's a reason for that. So go ahead and get in contact. So Raj, I mean, we're kind of coming to the end of this interview port. And one of the things that I always let people do is to share for 2 minutes without interruption, whatever's on their heart. It doesn't have to necessarily be about business. It can be, but whatever's on your heart, what do you want the world to hear? Your time's yours.
Well, Gary, we are going through one of the most difficult times, at least in my living memory. From time I've been on planet Earth to today, I think this is the hardest time I've faced. I've got families and friends who've gone through illnesses and recovered. Some of them are still recovering, for example. But from all of this, I think one thing I've realized is that we need to maximize our time on planet Earth. We need to maximize our time to enjoy the opportunities we get. I believe in this concept of work-life balance. More importantly, I believe that once things are back to normal to some extent, or the new normal which we come to, it's a time for us to maybe go again and travel a little bit, to explore different places, to learn about other people, their lives, their food, their culture. And I feel strongly about that idea of like traveling and exploring the world, because life's too short, you know. I mean, I can go on about this for hours and hours, but my wife went through a very difficult health scare, and she went through some health issues, and then she recovered. And that taught us that, listen, we have to be focused on maximizing our time. So one thing I'm passionate about is remote working. I believe that tomorrow's companies are going to be maybe 70% or even 80% or even 90% of people who are working remotely. Maybe they're freelancers, for example, but with the employee mentality. So what I call today the free employment. So freelance plus employment, free employment mentality, whereby you bring in freelancers who get routine work from you, but because they get work from you routine and that they kind of work within your company, the employee mindset. And when they have an employee mindset, they also have like a owner's mindset as well as part of it. And that will help you leverage a global workforce, a global way to help you with your ambitions. Sitting in the UK, you can be leveraging teams across in the Philippines, in the US, you know, anywhere in the world. And I think that we need to leverage that. We need to embrace remote working, not think of it as a barrier. We need to understand and appreciate the value which Zoom brings us, for example, or other tools like that. How can we use, for example, online tools to make our lives easier and live through these different and difficult times, but learning from it? Not saying this has been a tough time, so I'm going to forget about it, I'm going to move on. No, remote working is here to stay. There will be people working maybe one day in the office potentially and 4 days from home. And it could happen that they actually work, you know, all the time from home, and they only meet once per year for a nice little retreat, for instance. So today we need to leverage and believe in this and embrace it. And if we do embrace it, we'll build a company, an organization, a collective, which is future-proof, which is COVID-proof, which allows people to remain happy and healthy, working anywhere they want to work, and still work together as a unit, as a company, as an organization.
Awesome. I totally agree with you. And I oftentimes think back to December of 2019, the number of employers who said, you can only work if you come here. And when March 2020 hit, it suddenly became, please work from home. Please do what you were doing from home. And they saw the productivity jump. That is the thing that struck me, because you're right. The future is now, and the dinosaurs of the past are dying left and right. I know businesses that no longer have a main office. Whenever they want to assemble the crew, they rent a venue for the day. It's a lot cheaper. It's just a lot cheaper to run business. So I want to thank you very much for being our guest today. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for all the gold nuggets you've dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude this episode. If you liked it and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, double click the bell. Make sure you subscribe so that you're alerted every time we've uploaded. And, you know, Raj, I hope in the future you consider coming back on Gary's Glorious Golden Nuggets, because you, sir, know how to spill success out of the cup of joy, which I really appreciate. So thank you very much for coming on board today. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you.